Good afternoon, dear journalists. First, some figures, our current status, a quick briefing for you after the top command meeting. We had a very long meeting, by the way. It was the 229th of 1,349 days of this full-scale war. The enemy has 25,000 killed. Just for October, thanks to UAVs. This is a clear figure, as it is all video confirmed. As you know, we have a program where we award extra points for specific actions with video verification. So the figure here is clear. Plus, we count without video confirmation, there is another 2,000 or 3,000. This is the largest number of Russian losses since the beginning of the full-scale war in 1 month. This means we're increasing the number of the UAV components at the front. And accordingly the enemy, who started this aggression, is taking greater losses. As for the battlefield, Pokrovsk. This is the latest information from the military over the last few days and as of today. The commander-in-chief reported at the meeting of the top command. Pokrovsk. As always, a quick briefing, if possible, then your questions. I think we will answer all questions. Pokrovsk. The situation, you know, the situation is complicated. The enemy attacked on the 5th and continues to do so. But on the 5th, the enemy launched assault operations using equipment. They lost equipment, but the number one goal for the enemy is to occupy Pokrovsk as quickly as possible. This goal remains. This clearly follows from the number of assaults. In 3 days there were 220 assaults on Pokrovsk. In the city itself, according to our data, military data, there are 314 Russians. And the group on the outskirts, pressing in this direction, you know it's very large. General Natov will share details later. If he answers your questions, he'll explain everything. Kupiansk, we have advanced 1,200 meters. Thanks to our military. Well done. Vovchansk, we consider the situation tense and it may worsen because Russian militants are building up forces. Their build-up over this day is 600. That was observed by our military. Yes. And then Siversk. They had the intent and took corresponding steps. They aimed for a takeover and carried out assault actions. The enemy was unsuccessful. At Kramatorsk, also no success. Kostiantinyka, they also wanted to advance. They were unsuccessful. Oche Retin direction. No loss of our positions either. Dobropilya. You know there's an operation going on there. Our armed forces have success there. As for the meeting of the top command, first, you know we are preparing a contract for the future, for the near future for our military. For us, it's crucial that the contract is fair for all, those mobilized who want to transition to a contract, those currently on contract who wish to switch to a new one, and for future military or non-military personnel who want to join the Ukrainian armed forces, this contract will also be available. It will be fair for everyone. Today we are discussing possible sources of funding. As I said, it is a difficult question. When we are ready, we will go out to society with this. We have determined that the basic financial provision for such a contract in the army could be 50 to 60,000 hryvnias. This is without all those additional things regarding the first line, second line during wartime or at other times. So this is the basic figure we are counting on. We have started to proceed from that figure because our diplomats need to be given the appropriate signal. Our Ministry of Economy needs to be given the appropriate signal, the Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance. The Ministry of Defense is preparing all this. Appropriate signals must be sent for us to find a funding source. This is a very large, one might even say, reform. Such special treatment for the military, and it's right. If there are questions, the minister will share them to the extent of details we can share. Next, we conducted an audit. As you know, I had trips to the front. They were an audit of everything, what tasks were set. We have answers, and also the latest visit that was to the front. All requests, most of the requests of our armed forces, defense forces, which are on the hottest sectors, what interests them. There are also issues. We will resolve all of this. We will simplify the issues of pickups, ATVs. There are technical questions due to the resolutions. All this will be done. We'll also cover the explosives issue. And we'll cover all drone needs for the military. There is a need regarding the bonus plus system. You know what this system is called. Electronic points, right? You know the short name, we won't say it. And that's why all the military they really like this system. Everything is going well there. Some want to join within the Defense Forces system. We will include everyone in the system the armed forces currently use. Next, Mavics is a very important question. In addition to the contracts that we have, they are paid. All this works for us. We were looking for alternatives and we found them. Mass production of it is coming. Funding and relevant contracts will be prepared now, right? Next, it is important for drones and for such very important evacuation drones. We were asked, and I think this is fair, that we also include the corresponding operations into the system of these additional points. And I think that's also fair, because saving the life of a person, our person, is a priority. Next, a separate report by the commander of Unmanned Systems Forces and a separate major task. We are developing, and will develop in the near future, a program aimed at strengthening the protection of Kherson skies, fighting the enemy's UAVs. We understand this program. It was presented today. It is ready. This program was supported, and I asked to develop an appropriate program for all border cities, which are in the hottest sectors. Also, there was a report from the Minister of Defense and the Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine on exports. We are discussing this issue regarding the export of our weapons. As I said, Oleksandr Kamyshin last time already showed me the first two capitals where our platform will be opened. It's Denmark and Germany, Copenhagen and Berlin. We saw the first office in Copenhagen today. I'm glad we're moving so fast. I'm grateful to our Danish partners for supporting this direction. And separately we'll prepare. We already see all the requests regarding export and co-production, and we see how many there are. We will prepare a major investment forum specifically on the issue of co-producing Ukrainian drones, Ukrainian missiles with our partners. About all these details, probably a little later.
Katerina Zakharchenko, Kyiv Post. Mr. President, is there a real chance that the United States will still agree to transfer Tomahawk missiles to us? How do you estimate the probability of a positive decision?
As I said, we're working on this with our partners, primarily the United States, especially the White House, with the President. We're also working separately with manufacturers. We said it's separate pressure on Russia. This decision is important for us. President Trump didn't say no. That was absolutely true. But various institutions have given us positive signals about this decision, of course, which ultimately depends on the President of the USA. We spoke with the manufacturers. In the event of a positive signal from President Trump, the manufacturers will gladly, that is exactly their attitude toward Ukraine and toward Russia, gladly transfer to us or sell to Ukraine the corresponding systems. We talked not only about Tomahawks but also about things, let's say, I won't name them, many different names that also work well in terms of range. So we were interested in a set of different, if I can use such a word, different services. And for us this is indeed both a deterrent package for the continuation of Russian aggression and the proper response to their strikes on our civilian infrastructure, primarily energy. Therefore, we are working on this issue. And the fact that we continue to work indicates that there definitely is a chance that they will be transferred to us.
Interfax Ukraine, a question to Mr. President. Recently we learned that Sweden will open in Ukraine a plant to produce Gripens. When can we expect them? And is there any progress in obtaining French fighters? Thank you.
I think the Minister of Defense could partially speak to this based on the results of his trip. We won't communicate much about the Gripen aircraft. I think we said all we could. Therefore we need to finalize all the documents, finalize the funding, and funding depends on certain things. You know, we unconditionally have our Ukrainian capabilities. But first of all, we are counting on frozen assets and other bilateral documents with our partners where there are opportunities to finance certain priorities for our army. Aviation is a priority. Therefore, it is clear what we will finance. Dennis, if you would like. I'll be quick. Go. Following the agreement between our President and Sweden's Prime Minister, yesterday we discussed future deal details with the Swedish Ministry of Defense. 150 Gripen Echo-class jets are agreed for delivery. We also had very productive negotiations yesterday with Saab, which is the manufacturer. Yesterday, a memorandum was signed between a Ukrainian company and Saab concerning future Gripen localization in Ukraine. We anticipate that by 2033, Gripen production will be significantly localized in Ukraine, starting from large-scale assembly and to the localization of individual parts. By this time we will already have a Gripen. No, this is already production here. It's not about getting Gripens, which is a completely different story. You asked about localization in Ukraine, so I am answering about localization. We are requesting that Ukraine have Gripens of the previous class, C and D, as soon as possible. We insist that this be the 26th year, and we are negotiating with partners about this. And production of the Echo Gripen will begin a little later, but still within very near timeframes in any case. We also discussed the possibility of starting training for our pilots and mechanics from the beginning of next year, to align the timing of pilot and mechanic preparation with the reception of the first Gripen jets. So it's also important. And yesterday we agreed to create 2 working groups. The first working group is technical, focusing on preparing for receiving and utilizing the Gripen jets here in Ukraine. The second group is the financial working group, which will deal with the issues of this contract. Since this is set to be the largest contract ever on the European continent, it's truly a landmark agreement for us, Sweden, and Europe as a whole, requiring very thorough and meticulous preparation. Yesterday we agreed to create 2 working groups based on our ministries and the Ministry of Finance in particular. So it will be a multi-group, and we are beginning this work. Since our fleet must be very strong, because we understand who we are fighting with. And this is the fleet of future aviation, modern aviation of Ukraine. As I told you, we will be based on multiple platforms. With the Gripens, everything is already clear. The second question is about France. It all depends on our negotiations here. We look at all this quite positively. When it happens, you will know everything.
Mr. President, good afternoon.
Good
James
afternoon.
Mandel, BBC.
Hi.
Is Ukraine facing the worst winter of this war? Can Ukraine survive this coming winter?
Thank you very much. So first, this is not the first winter during this war. It's a pity, but it's true. Yeah, and for us, you know, when winter is coming, when heating season begins in Ukraine, so we are already in winter between us, and the signals of beginning of the winter is heating season, and also the season when Russia increases the attacks on our energy, electricity, water supplies, gas, you know, all the civilian infrastructure. So Russia began it already, and you know it, I think. So that's why we can't say what winter we will face, but we understand this volume of challenges. That's why we have to prepare, and we need and we count on our partners, that we go together, not alone, through this winter, shoulder to shoulder, like we say, but it's very important when they can, in the case when we will have challenges with a big volume of gas. That's why we are preparing for this, to import the volume what we will need. And we understand that if we will have the biggest challenge, as I said already before, that we have to find about $2 billion. Yes, and I mean, we are on the way of this. We understand that. We already have understanding for 75% of this gap, yes, where to get it. So thanks for partners. And also I will have some video summit with Ursula and some other leaders on energy question, and I think that at the very beginning of next week we will have, and I will understand it. We will see the estimation on what we can count. Yes, but we really we can't now. I mean, this fix the number of Russian attacks, and we understand that the volume is the medium. I mean, we have 300 shaheeds. So, but they can have 300 shaheeds plus Gerania. I mean, that they can have 500 plus. But we understand that they now again collect, and we understand how they use this. So I don't know what winter we will have, because President Trump and European leaders, they already provided sanctions. The 19th sanctions package of EU was good, and they are preparing, I think, strong package number 20. Then we will see how sanctions of White House will work. I think that it will be very strong influence on Russian economy, and that's why I'm telling you about it. That's why I think that these cases like Tomahawks or other long range with Storm Shadows and Scalps from UK and French partners, and American weapon, and plus sanctions from White House, and plus sanctions from EU. All these cases can influence on Putin and push him to sit and speak. So I mean that's why I don't know what winter will be, but we have to prepare in any case. And I think that we understand what to do, we understand what we will need, and our partners also know from us what, in the case of difficulties, what volume of electricity we have to import. So we are preparing for this. Thank you.
Mr. President, tonight, Viktor Orban meets with Trump. Before this meeting, he stated that in the coming days a meeting of Trump and Putin is supposedly possible. Do you see, given the intelligence data, the situation on the ground directly, an opportunity for diplomacy in the near future? And in general, what do you expect from the meeting? Do you expect Trump to pressure Orban, or explain why he shouldn't block EU for us? Mr. General, my second question is about the troop groupings on the Pokrovsk and Myrnarad fronts. Can you give a figure of how many enemy forces have been thrown there today? Is it really more than 100,000? And you hear calls to evacuate people from there. Should it be done today? Again, based on your information, thank you.
If you don't mind, I'll answer first. Regarding President Trump's meeting with Prime Minister Orban, I can only imagine issues related to Ukraine, which will be discussed. But we really do not know the agenda of bilateral relations between these countries. First of all, Orban wants to bring Trump to Hungary for a meeting with Putin. You know our position on that. I will not repeat myself if there is a meeting, wherever it is. That definitely gives a ceasefire and an end to the war. Ukraine will support one format or another. I always talk about it. But if these meetings are just fireworks for Mr. Orban's election campaign and lead to no results, we cannot support them. Ineffective meetings about us and without us are ineffective precisely because they happen without us, in my view. But again, if there's a result, we accept any format except Russia, Belarus, as they are allies in this war against us and they started the war. Let us not forget Lukashenko. He has suddenly become very talkative in the media and pretends to be kind to our people. We don't need his kindness at 4 o'clock in the morning with rockets. We don't need it. And he thinks that he can somehow talk away our memory with words. We, young people, remember everything very well, and he will still pay for what he did. Namely, he allowed an offensive from his territory at the beginning of the full-scale war. The strikes came at us from Belarusian soil. No one will forget this. That is why we said that the unconditional exception is the territory of Russia and Belarus. And the rest depends on results. I'm also sure Hungary's Prime Minister will raise energy issues. And that's why everyone understands the consequences of sanctions from the White House and President Trump personally. Sanctions on energy companies. Lukoil and Rosneft. There are a lot of subsidiaries there, so it is clear that the sanctions are very strong. Orban will seek an opportunity for them to receive special treatment. We will certainly not support any special treatment for Orban. What the United States of America decides, we will see. Let's put it this way. I think these are the two main things. He will tell him that Putin wants to end the war because the Prime Minister's rhetoric is no different from the Russian one. He will say that Ukraine is losing the war because his rhetoric does not differ from Russia's. He's like a live courier service. Russia's mail in the United States. Andrew, there was a question for you. Please. Regarding the situation in the Pokrovsk direction, already today, Mr. President said that this is one of the hottest sectors right now. The enemy persists in attempts to seize Pokrovsk and create conditions to encircle the Pokrovsk-Myrnarad agglomeration. These intentions have been going on for more than a year. They are trying to create conditions there in order to capture this relatively small city. Indeed, the enemy has built a certain superiority in forces and means there. They have partially infiltrated the urban area, especially on the southern outskirts of the settlement, and they are trying to create a foothold to continue their offensive. All decisions concerning this operation will be made by military command. It's not a public matter, but the public will be informed of the decisions' outcomes when they are made and can be disclosed. For now, primarily in the interests of the city's defenders. Excess public information would only hinder them in their work. Thanks.
Mr. President, what's the last communication you had with Trump? And also, do you have any indication that the Trump administration is going to apply greater pressure in regards to sanctions?
Hi.
Hi.
My last communication with the president was, I think, during the meeting in Washington. Yeah, I really don't remember. Sorry. So each day like a life. So we had communication. You know, it was a long dialogue about a lot of different things. Then we had communications already on different levels, and Rustemas and Yermak also had, and so we have. I mean, we have each day, mostly each day communication on different levels with American side. But I think, what about sanctions? So we are thankful to the President for this sanctions package. We will see how it will work. I think this is a very strong package. I think that we will see some signals from Russians, and maybe through Hungarian Prime Minister, because I think that really Russia will show that the sanctions will not have influence. But when Russians say about that something will not have influence, it means that it's great decision. It was great decision. It means that it will have influence. Then, of course, this question with Lukoil, for example, companies with their factories. You know that there are several factories in Europe, in different countries. And in different, very European countries, by the way, very pro-Ukrainian countries, but they have factories there, fighting factories from 90s. Yes, but in these, according to the sanctions, I mean, they will have to close all the things. In any case, banking will close. So we understand the influence of these sanctions, and they are much more deeper than we can. I mean, we can understand like the first steps. Yes, and they will have. They will make difficulties for Russia.
But would you like more from the Trump administration?
Of course, and President Trump. I'm not sure, I don't know if he likes it or not, but you know that Ukraine, we are in the war, so we always need more. But we are thankful, but we need more.
Will the American delegation be here next week? You announced early on.
Look, we were supposed to have several American delegations. We have some technical meetings on drones. They will take place. All this is there. As for the diplomatic track, because of certain issues, those visits will be on different dates. Union, please. I think Russia, excuse me please, I think Russia with this story about Pokrovsk. You know what they will do as constantly as possible. They are very afraid of strong decisions by the United States when they have no success on the battlefield. And therefore, it is very important for Russia to do everything to really capture Pokrovsk in any format to show success on the battlefield. Whether to advance on Vovchansk or do something else, they need to show success. Then they will be able to try to return this narrative. We told you we would take Donbas.
що ми ж вам казали, що ми захопимо Донбас.
We told you to force the president and Ukrainians, respectively, force him leave Donbas because we will definitely seize eastern Ukraine anyway, force him, and then we will negotiate among ourselves. Therefore, I think that this is a factor that can influence the imposition or the postponement of some sanctions packages because everyone is waiting to see what happens.
Який може впливати, до речі, і на запровадження санкцій або відтермінування якогось пакету санкцій.
Because everyone's waiting. I wanted to ask again about Trump and Orban's meeting today. Do you believe Trump can sway the Hungarian PM to unblock Ukraine's EU integration? And should we expect that Trump might influence Orban so that Hungary gives up the need to purchase Russian oil? Thank you. You asked two questions that Orban mostly came with. Let's find a way so that Hungary's oil dependence on the Russian Federation doesn't suffer. I'm sure he will push that to the maximum, absolutely to the maximum. But he must also understand our attitude to this. We cannot give the Russians the opportunity to make money on this, on energy. And even where our hands are twisted by one contract or another, obligations and so on, we will still find a way to ensure there is no Russian oil in Europe. It's great that the United States is interested in this. But we, as a country that is under Russian aggression, are definitely interested in this. Orban constantly raises these issues with different influential players, asking them to pressure us. In my view, he should build his election campaign not on hatred toward Ukraine, but on friendship. On the message, look, I have a problem, help me solve it in terms of energy. And he thinks not about people, about solving this problem, but about himself. And he thinks he can do it by hating Ukraine. He can't. Why? Because we won't let it happen. We will not allow the Russians to sell oil there. It's a matter of time. A matter of our positions. Some things we simply can't do today because there are many dependencies in this puzzle. But we will complete the picture anyway, and he clearly understands this. And no one will be able to influence us. No one. And that's why he blocks us. He thinks he can block our way to Europe. No one will stop Ukraine's development and path to Europe. The Russians couldn't. He may think that if it happens 6 months later or some other delay, it will stop Ukraine. No. But it's just that every day, every month, there is an increase in incomprehensible emotions. Instead of being friends, being worthy neighbors, building the economy, first of all, the economy. Instead, we do these things. We do everything. We do nothing against the Hungarian people, we're grateful to them. We do nothing against the Hungarian leader, but we simply cannot remain silent. We just cannot be diplomats when such words are said about us or when the Russian Federation is aided with rhetoric, diplomacy, and other steps. We uphold our own dignity. And for us that is a core value. Dignity and freedom and the independence of our state, very important things. He will not be able to block it, he is wasting time. So yes, the energy question, of course he will say. We support you, help us, take us out. The key is this election period until April or whenever the elections in Hungary are. He will work on it.
I have a question relating to European integration. It's a bit difficult question, but there is a concern from European capitals about the cases in Odesamir or Kudrycki accused by the Kudrycki accused the presidency of bringing like a case against him. There is kind of case writing with mayor of Odessa, etc., etc. and European capitals express some concern that the court may be used to silence dissenting voice in Ukraine. So some critics believe that your administration has conceded too much power since the start of the war on this end, and creating a risk for democracy in Ukraine. So I would like to please, if it's possible, to have a comment on that and a response to that.
Very difficult to comment the things which are created by somebody. I don't know. I mean, I can't even answer on some details which are far away from real situation. So it's not my case. It's about judicial system of Ukraine. I don't have any kind of attitude to this person. He was a chief of big system, and that system had to secure our energy. He had to do it, had to do it. And that's it. This is the end. That's it. Будь ласка.
Mr. President, US President Donald Trump recently stated that significant progress was made in ending the war. But looking at open source data, neither from the battlefield
No progress seen.
nor from Kremlin's actions, we see no progress.
I think we talked about that today. In my view, there are things we don't know. And here we share the same information space, trust me. I think the Russians fear these steps, sanctions and Tomahawk missiles. And when they saw the first step on sanctions, they understood what could happen next. And then the shutdown will be resolved. And then the issue of other sanctions, the sanctions package will be raised in Congress. And then the question of long-range weapons will arise again. This is a question. It's already in the air. Now it's a matter of time. And therefore I believe, though I might be wrong, that President Trump specifically reacted to this. Maybe he received some signals from the Russian side about the need to talk somehow. But they always do all this only in order to postpone the decision of the President of the United States. Always. They realize that delaying EU sanctions packages won't work much because Europe doesn't engage with them directly. Through the Hungarian blockage, they can find ways to delay some things. You know that. In the United States, they have direct negotiation, and obviously they're making diplomatic moves to delay sanctions implementation. They did this since the beginning of President Trump's term. They constantly promised something, said some nice words, some words of support. They seem to want the war to end. And step by step they demonstrated the opposite, unwillingness for the end of the war. And every agreement they end with just words. So I think this could be President Trump's reaction to the signals coming from the Russian side. Honestly, I don't know. I have no further information.
Two questions about the contracts. I wanted to clarify when these contracts are expected to become effective. When do you plan to actually find the funds? And a question about arms exports. If I'm not mistaken, a plan for arms exports was to be developed by year-end. Are there any details about this? How will it work? Thank you. To Mr. Dennis.
Mr. Dennis, about contracts.
Thank you. By the President's instruction, we have started this work. It concerns the overall reform of the army, moving the army to a contract model of service. Accordingly, the contract model allows for selection of both position and place of service. Contracts affect everyone, primarily targeting active servicemen. Both active contract soldiers and active mobilized will have the right to conclude such contracts. Contract term 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you can choose. The only thing is that after 2 years and a longer contract term, a 12-month deferment from mobilization will be granted during martial law. This is an example, as it is for an 1824 contract. For a 1-year contract, there won't be such an option. You can sign a 1-year contract, but it does not grant the 12-month deferment. Today we are calculating and discussing, the President has already said, the size of this basic monetary security for the contract. The General Staff and Ministry of Defense conducted over 5 relevant studies and surveys among servicemen. Consequently, the baseline pay level is considered 50 to 60,000 hryvnias, which the President announced today as our foundation for further contract development. Contract drafting involves legislative changes and several cabinet of ministers of Ukraine resolutions. These documents are currently in progress. Some are pending approval at the central executive body. Once everything is ready, I believe early next year it will be submitted for review and public attention.
Is it going to be submitted to the Verkhovna Rada for consideration?
Changes to the law are needed to allow a 1-year contract. At present the law has no 1-year term for people over 25. So the law must be amended to create that possibility, and accordingly, the necessary regulations. Now it is in the works and on external approval. Once everything is finally agreed, we'll present it publicly.
Would you like to add anything on exports?
Thank you. The task is to develop the entire concept of how exports and joint production with countries, our strategic partners, will work by December. It will be presented in December within the country. And for the beginning of next year, the task is to hold an investment forum in one of our partner European countries, to present all this to our partners. We are preparing for this. We are currently conducting outreach with our producers, carrying out preparatory, infrastructural work with all the infrastructure for export. It's SSEC, MTS Commission, and other bodies. And we'll be ready. Goodbye.